Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack, and this is a rather special and a rather different 3.2 Carrera. Now there is an old adage, an old saying about cars in general, and for me 911s as well, that the best thing you can do, I'm just trying to find the wipers, the best thing you can do to these is to add lightness, and that is indeed what I tried to do with my very own 964. This car turns things completely on its head, because rather than add lightness, the lightness is already there because the 3.2 was a much lighter car than the 964 series. And what Simeon, who owns this car, has done is that he simply added a modern engine in the lighter, older car. And it works amazingly well. So this is essentially a 3.2 Carrera which Simeon bought. It needed a lot of work, the engine was shot, and he decided that he really wanted about 300 horsepower in it, and the sort of quotes he was getting for the 3.2s rebuilt was about, well, 250, 260. And then the option came up, why not use a 964 engine, RS Cup spec? So this was a project that was done by Tuttill's, but also the engine in particular was done by Nick Fulljames at Red Tech, who also built my engine. And I'm pretty sure that he used the same cams as he did in mine, because this just feels exactly the same. These 964 engines, I think, are massively underrated. They were such a big step forward. It's the M64 engine. For me, a really big step forward from the 3.2s that came before this. And they had a bad reputation because they used to leak a lot and they tend to need rebuilds after about 100,000 miles. But when they are sorted, I think they're just perfect 911 engines. They have loads of torque, they're smooth, they're creamy, and they're revvy. I mean, they literally have the whole package. I've just been out in this car earlier. It was dry, it wasn't raining like it is now. So I drove it a bit harder than I am at the moment, and it's just lovely. So I think that the idea of going with an old car and putting a modern engine in it works really, really well in this instance. Now this particular 3.2 has, I think it's the XC or XT suspension package from Tuttill's, but it retains the torsion beam suspension. And you can kind of feel it at lower speeds because all the bumps come through, but then at higher speeds it works extremely well. It sort of dampens everything out, so it gives you that raw feel of the earlier car, but it handles the bumps really well, and the whole car just feels really well sorted. Be completely truthful with you, I'm not actually a massive fan of the 911 handling and the rearward balance. I don't love it. I know some people do, but I'm not a huge fan of it. But this car for a 911 feels so well balanced. And you can, when you go around corners, again, I haven't pushed it super hard, but you can kind of feel that the back end's going to be pretty progressive. One of the weirdest things about this car, it's not a negative, but it is so bizarre, is that it retains the 915 gearbox. A lot of people don't like these gearboxes, and I think that's simply because they tend to drive ones, or they've driven ones, which are quite worn out. It's a fantastic gearbox. It does have a long throw, but once you get used to that, the shift feel is really mechanical, and it's all part of the vintage sort of feeling of the old car. But having said that, because the engine is so 964, and like my old 964, puts out about 290 horsepower, I think, in this state of tune, every time I sort of reach forward to change gear, I feel like it should be that shorter, stubby 964 gear change. and instead you get the sort of smoother, longer 915 change. But I really like it. In terms of outright pace, it feels very similar to my own 964, but do remember that I think in the end I shaved about 180 kilos off that, so it sounds about right. These sort of seats are from a Megane and they work really, really well. I personally don't like pole positions, so I think it's a nice compromise to have these over the standard sports seats, which also are super, super heavy, although I quite like those too. Really, really well balanced. One thing I would say is that the gearing feels like it could do with being slightly shorter. The car has a lightweight flywheel, which my car also used to have, and they really help to wake up these engines. It almost feels sometimes like the gears are a bit too long, but Simeon wanted to be able to have something that he could use for longer journeys without coming out feeling absolutely knackered. So this at 70, a steady 70, is at about 2,800 RPM. So there is obviously that advantage. And I guess overall, this suspension isn't super stiff. This is a really nice balance between, definitely wouldn't call it a tourer, but it still has touring capability. It still sort of has a little bit of road muscle, but it's not just a total scratcher. It's much more friendly than that. And as a marriage, the 964 engine and the 3.2 I think works like incredibly well. It addresses some of the issues that the 3.2 has for me, which is just that it tends to feel a little bit too slow. So as standard, I think they put out 230 horsepower. You do have to rev them, which is nice. I'm going to be driving a standard one very soon, so I'll be able to compare again. But from what I remember, the extra muscle that this has, the extra torque in particular, really does make a difference. It just makes it much more drivable. What a brilliant car. On this road is particularly bumpy, the road that I use to do my films, and it really upsets a lot of cars, and this just totally takes it in its stride. I love the 915 gearbox. Try a properly sorted one. This handles the bumps just so well, the bigger bumps, which is what is important after all. Steering, usual, pretty amazing 911. Stacks of feel. You wanna... Now I made a mistake because I'm a crap driver and I went into that corner on a trailing throttle, and you can really feel the difference. The moment you put the power on again, it just tightens in. Thank you so much to Simeon for bringing this car down. It is absolutely great. Probably, I think it's the best 3.2 I've ever driven in terms of all-round capabilities. It's a fabulous little car. If you have a car that you think I should be reviewing, which is a bit different, a bit interesting, then please do get in touch. Instagram is the best way. And really look forward to seeing you for the next video.